What? Episode 80? Yeah, it's true. Hey, welcome back to the Air Hug community. We are getting ready with a new episode, but just a quick intro here if it's your first time. My name is Judy Arizosa, and I'm basically the midlife mom next door turned professional bodybuilder. But really, I'm just a mom and a wife and a grandma, and this podcast was created because I wanted to share stories and experiences from myself and others who are in this midlife, messy middle part of life. It's wonderful, it's awful, it's challenging, it's rewarding, it's everything. And there are so many stories and experiences that we can share. And that's what this podcast is all about. Oh, how often do you think you get angry? I actually think I get angry more often than I thought. I just started paying attention. It's kind of weird, right? And anyways, what do we think about anger? Is it okay? Is it not okay? What does it mean? Well, we have a guest today who's going to talk about that.
I probably picked those stupid headphones up off the floor.
Probably 20 times, yeah.
I know, right? It's one of those things that like the kids take it or, yeah.
Okay, I could not resist leaving that in there because, right, that's what I'm talking about. We have these little events that like throw us off, but sometimes they're a lot bigger. Anyways, hold on, because here comes our guest. Welcome back, everybody. We are ready to get started, and I'm very excited because our guest today has some really interesting, we were chatting a little bit yesterday, some really interesting takes on our topic today. So our guest is a social worker who is a therapist in private practice and has been for over 20 years. And her name is Sarah Laverde. Sarah, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you're here.
So I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's so funny. When I called you, I don't know, it was yesterday or the day before, I was just, this topic came up in my head and I was reading about it. So some people know I'm kind of, I don't want to say obsessed, but I really enjoying reading this book called The Daily Stoic. And I've made reference to it quite a bit on social media and in casual conversation with my own clients. It's little readings that the Stoics have written and then little interpretations by the authors of the book. And sometimes they hit a nerve and sometimes I have no idea what they're talking about, but there's one for every day of the year. And we're into February now. So at the time of this recording, it's February, and it should also be February when you listen to this for the first time. But the first topic in February was anger. And before I ask Sarah any questions, I just want to because we're going to get into this a little bit, according to the Stoics, because they have, I think, a different definition than our current day definition. They talk a lot about passions. So when I hear people today talking about passions, it's like a good thing. Like I'm passionate about being healthy. I'm passionate about tennis or some hobby or their work or whatever. But the Stoics thought of passions as things that were disturbing and misleading. I don't want to call them like the 7 deadly sins, but I think they were more along the lines of you don't want to give in to your passions. So when we talk about that in a little while, it's going to make sense. So the Stoics talk about anger being a weakness and a trap, in that to be in control of our passions demonstrates strength. And if we get angry, that we're not in control of our passions. So, and now I was talking to Sarah, we came up with a little different interpretation. So Sarah, tell me about anger.
Well, I feel that anger is a very important emotion. And it's very important because it's your way of telling yourself that something is not sitting right with you, something is not aligned. So personally, I appreciate when a patient or a client comes in with a lot of anger, because anger can be a very active and motivating emotion if it's worked through and processed, and if we can come up with some control steps. So I like angry clients. I like when people are active and there's something that's bothering them, and when we can really get to the bottom of it and figure out what the situation that's making them angry is tapping for them. Sometimes we can really get into some negative thought patterns that have really been troublesome to them in relationships and in many areas of their life. So it can be a very motivating emotion.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So versus someone who might come in and have like no emotion, you'd rather see them be angry than indifferent?
Yes. Depressed folks that are kind of apathetic and not caring, and that's a whole nother ball game. And also for many of my anxious clients and social anxiety, for folks that are having any OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and rituals, you really have to get mad about it for any real change to occur. So anger, I think, can be a very important change step. Sometimes in relationships, there's patterns that are occurring causing, ongoing anger. And when you can really look at that and process it and, make change, you can really, move to a much better place. So it really can be harnessed and used as a tool, a good tool for change. I mean, think about it. Many people don't make changes. A lot of times we don't make big changes when everything's going great. It usually sometimes takes some shift in our lives or something that's bothering us to really kind of make a change and move forward and do something different.
That makes a lot of sense if you think about it, and if you don't care enough to make a change, if you don't have the emotion that's strong enough, then you're always going to be where you are. Right. So we actually brought up, and this was not like academic or anything, it just came up in our conversation. We talked about 3 different areas of anger. And the first part we talked about was, and you alluded to it a little bit, was anger with relationships, whether it's someone or, can you consider like road rage a relationship, like a stranger, or is that different?
No, it's all good. A momentary relationship. Experience.
Someone you're sharing the road with. Yeah. So how does anger with relationships affect us, and how is that a great example of how you need to get angry enough to want to make a change to maybe improve the relationship?
Right. And relationships that are, that we're around a long time, give us a great place to work, right? Because it's not a road rage incident where we can just do something and the person's gone, right? Relationships challenge us all the time, right? Somebody wants us to do something. We don't really want to do it. We don't want to be put out. Somebody offends us. Somebody lets us down. And oftentimes relationships give us a great chance to kind of have a repetitive situation. And many clients come in and, it's this thing that my husband always does, or my friend just keeps letting me down, or my mother, and so often, it's not that one conversation. It's not the one time somebody let you down or the one person that didn't call back. Most of the time, one thing that I work on a lot with people, kind of from a cognitive behavioral therapy standpoint, is that it's kind of our thought states that are driving our feeling states, and that we're having, I think, somewhere between 60,000 random thoughts a day. And They say that it's really the conversation that we're having with ourselves that drives how we respond and how we react. So situations in relationships cause us to have certain conversations with ourselves that then leave us feeling a certain way. And even dialing that back further, the idea is that the conversations that we're having with ourselves go back to core beliefs that we hold about ourselves. Some of the core beliefs are very positive, and sometimes there's some negative core beliefs that we're walking around with. Many of the folks I talk to comes down to, I do not deserve to be treated well, or I deserve to be rejected, or of course no one likes me. Many times comes down to fears of failure, which kind of leave the person responding to and having this whole conversation and thought pattern with themselves, moment to moment, that then leaves them kind of almost talking yourself into a state of anger. So truly the goal becomes to work on our core beliefs and to figure out where those old messages came from, that we're not good enough or that we must be perfect in everything. And then kind of change, some of those thought patterns and then have a different idea. So, somebody experiencing, I always love to talk about husbands, right? Do you think it's mostly women that listen to this podcast, Judy, or are men going to listen and be offended? Is it more women that listen, you think?
Oh, I don't think we're going to offend anyone, but I don't know. I think our audience is probably skewed more towards women, but that's okay.
Okay. So,
but hey, in my relationship, my husband always says that he's the wife and I'm the husband because he's very sensitive. And I'm like, no, I think we're both the wife, but that sounds weird, but like, he's still a guy. Don't get me wrong. But like, he's more sensitive than the average.
So many times we're walking around with this thought pattern of, my husband's doing this, my husband's not doing that, my husband's always doing this to me and it's driving me nuts. And if you can, it's really funny sometimes if you can tell your husband or whoever the ideas that you're having about their behavior, and they really will look at you like, you were attaching all of that to me buying the wrong kind of cereal at the store, so, or, because I didn't move a load of laundry, you went down this whole road of me not caring about you, or, you not being respected. You're like, and they're like, I was not there at all. I was just getting myself out the door. So, if you could, and really the work becomes changing the ideas that you're having.
Oops, we froze for a minute. Hopefully you'll come right back. Don't go away, Sarah. Hang in there. We're frozen. Folks, she'll be right back. We froze for a second.
Okay.
Can you back up by like maybe a sentence or two?
Yes. And so I think I was talking about that the work becomes, if you can share the situation and put all that you're attaching onto it, and then your spouse or the person in a relationship can help you form a new thought pattern so that when those situations occur, you don't attach them to your old core belief, and you can start to kind of have a new experience of just, my husband's forgetful at the store, not that he doesn't respect me when he's at the store and can't remember what I needed, in a small example.
That's a great example.
You know what I mean? Or how about like the cell phone charger, mom never has I never have a cell phone charger when I need it. It's up in someone's bedroom, or somebody took it to work, or, and you attach, sometimes you attach all of this stuff to other people are really just living their lives. And so very important, I think, to dig down and figure some of that stuff out for yourself. And that's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. But in addition, what's in there is thinking about what you're thinking about, being very aware, so when you're reacting angrily, if you're finding yourself flipping out or becoming tense, really taking the time to say, why in the heck am I getting so angry all the time? Judy, I think we talked a lot about getting off of the anger going nowhere place. Like instead of just, I'm so angry is not really serving anyone. If you can really try to bear down and say, why in the heck is this making me so angry all the time? So you're thinking about what you're thinking about is really key to kind of breaking some of this stuff down and taking control of it so you can feel better, because it doesn't feel good to be feeling so reactive, to life's little stuff. You don't want to be annoyed, right? You want to be able to let things roll off you. And sometimes it's easier than others, depending what life is throwing your way. But anger is very important. It's most of the time it's justified. Like most of the time you have every right to be angry. It's important, how to be angry in the right way at the right time in the right place is, something that I think Aristotle talked about. That's one of his little quotes, like from, so people have been struggling with anger for
it's nothing new. So I have a question. Getting back to like being angry, what about people who they seem to like to be, they always go to the angry route first. It seems like they're angry about everything. Like my kids and I, after watching Elf like a million times, we call them angry elves because they're like always angry. And that's like, is that an example of the being angry without like trying to change it?
Yeah. And I think that's somebody, I just go to, there's something going on in there, that person's got to dig down, and figure out, why are they pulling for this negative message from the world constantly? Why are they needing to reinforce this negative experience with everybody all the time? Most of the probably they're probably really struggling inside, and they don't feel like they can talk about that or something, or they don't feel like that's okay to just say. So it kind of becomes about everybody else is making me mad, or I'm such a victim of all these people, instead of just, I'm really down on myself, or I don't feel good about where I am in life. I mean, most of the people that you probably know that are like that are either, not so sure of themselves with where they're at in life, are struggling, or going through something and having their own, a lot of self-doubt, or a lot of, so when that's going on, I'm always like, okay, that's somebody really needs to think about that a little bit, right? It's not everybody, is out to get you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings me around to like my second thought, which was, is this an example? Or if not, I want to talk about people who are like angry with themselves. Is that something totally different, being angry with themselves, or are they, well, let me just ask you that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I had a professor at NYU that once wrote on my paper, depression can be anger turned towards the self, anger turned inward. So there's a piece of it where you kind of want the person to kind of, sometimes they're just down, but maybe there's things in their life that they need to become more actively angry about and take an action step. But yes, sometimes a lot of when we're feeling angry, it's that we're really mad at ourselves. I think we talked about that. Like a good friend told me, like when you're yelling at your kids in the morning, like the getting out the school door, you're mad at yourself. I'm mad at myself that I didn't get up earlier, that I didn't have it more organized, that I didn't get somebody's favorite thing from Wegmans, and now they're yelling at me at 6:30 in the morning that they don't have their favorite thing. And so sometimes when we're reacting, right, it's not really, it's more of like we're yelling at somebody else, but really the person we're mad at is ourselves. And so
like, why did we do that? We're angry with what we either did or didn't do to get ready. Yeah.
And that's where it's so important. It's not, to kind of dig deeper on it and to look at what it's tapping and look at like our core beliefs, and a lot of like, it's like, I'll never do a good job, or I'll never get it, and so then you're kind of just spewing in the moment. And again, going back to thinking about what you're thinking about and getting off the angry train, going nowhere, and really trying to take 2 seconds to say, why am I flipping out? Why nobody wants to hear anybody yelling at 6:30 in the morning, and kind of being present with it. And if you can apologize to a kid before they actually get on the bus, that's great too. So the goal, I think anger is normal, so you are going to have moments of not being your best self. The key is to kind of get off the angry train, don't just go sailing away on it. And then that's your whole day. We all have moments of weakness, and you can go back over it and you can process it and work on it, and to kind of get present with it sooner than later, and take an action step and take control of it. But it's a very important emotion, and there's something something's got to change, something's got to give. And so if you can listen to it and not be so afraid of it in yourself and afraid of it in other people, and you can get a little deeper on it, you can really uncover a lot of keys to happiness. a lot of keys to changes that can truly make you a more balanced, peaceful person.
I love that. Okay. Because you really have me thinking like you're not saying don't suppress your anger and be happy all the time, but you're also saying, if I'm hearing you right, okay, there's anger. You don't want to stay in anger all the time. You want to take some action to figure out what made that angry emotion happen inside of you. I understand you. I'm so excited.
I know.
This is why I wanted to talk to you, because in the Stoic passage that I read, I'm going to read that. Did I read this before, talking about how weakness is a trap? Did I say that at the beginning? I don't think I did.
Oh, you mentioned it a little bit, but sure. Yeah. I'd like to hear what they.
Yeah. So I was reading that and I'm like, and I think it's because they were talking about passion being basically coveting something that's not good. You know, it's in the you know, a disturbing or misleading force. So in the thoughts of a Stoic, getting angry over a passion is not a good thing, right? But if for us, getting angry over something, I feel like means that we need to change something. Yes?
Or could be something that you're struggling in within yourself, something that you need. Right. It can be a good tool. I think they're talking about it. I mean, I think we talked on the phone, like, God, anger is huge. You could go so many different ways.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly what they're saying of becoming so angry in a situation that you can't negotiate, right? In a business, if you're becoming angry and you're ending relationships because you can't handle any, you know, adversity or anybody telling you something, you know. So I think, you know, they're trying to point out, like, anger can absolutely be a huge distraction and a huge, you can lose your job if you're not angry at the right time, in the right way, in the right place. Right. Mm-hmm. So certainly I'm not giving anyone that's listening to this podcast, you know, permission to go tell, you know, ruin a relationship, tell anybody. I'm kind of more suggesting, you know, talking about your anger and letting a person that you care about and that cares about you know what you need in the relationship to feel good, right? Or know what you need based on who you are. And that when they do a certain thing, it kind of makes you feel a certain way. So you're trying to understand that. But yes, I mean, you know, and I kind of wonder, like, a little bit of, like, I'm hearing some of that, like, jealousy, anger and jealousy. I wonder if that's what they're talking about. Like, how certainly, if you're just going to intense anger does cloud your thinking, right? We know that. So they're referring to, like, you know, if you're just going to get all upset, your conversation is going to go differently. You're not really problem solving. I always tell people, don't try to, when you're really angry, you're not in a place to figure something out. You're not going to concede. You're not going to compromise. You're not going to go along with someone else's way, you know? So, certainly there's a lot of anger that could be a barrier and a distraction, and toxic. I mean, I'm certainly not suggesting to anybody, if there's somebody in your life that's not handling anger safely or appropriately, certainly need to set limits on that. But yeah, you know, it's there. It's been around since the beginning of time. Yeah, right. You know, the human race has tried to figure out how to handle this emotion, because it can be so, it can cause a lot of problems if not handled in the right way. Yeah. And that's where it's so important to get off that angry train. If you're in a place of spewing and yelling and, you know, physically you're thrown off, right? You shouldn't be driving a car. Don't, you know, take some time for yourself, you know, don't go make an important phone call when you're, you know, like that. So I think that's probably a little bit of where they're going with that, right? You have to clear that. You do have to clear that intense active anger for the next step.
Got it. Okay. I'm so glad you pointed that out. You know, versus staying there or not even acknowledging it, somewhere in between. So let's fast forward to March 16th, 2020. So at least locally here, March 16th, 2020, where we live, and Sarah and I are in the same general community within, a number of miles. But anyways, that was the day the first person in our community was diagnosed with COVID. And that was pretty much the day that our community went into lockdown. And I feel like most of the world, at least most of the world that I was aware of in the US, Canada-ish, was all within a few days of that. And that's, people became, at first it was like, well, it's just going to be 2 weeks. We're going to slow the spread. And then as it became more and more chronic, and I sensed that a lot of people were angry over something that we can't control.
Yeah. And again, and there's been so many phases of it, right? Of, okay, it's going to be fine. Now it's depending on where you live, now it's not fine. Now you have to do this. Now you don't have to do this. And this is a tough one. We talked about, anger. My God, we could do a 10-week series on anger.
Yeah.
But right. It's a loss of control. Okay. And loss of control, and uncertainty. Those are two conditions that the human spirit absolutely hates. We absolutely hate uncertainty and loss of control. Like, people do better when they find out they have cancer and know the plan than when they're finding out they have cancer, right? Parents, when they finally hear your kid's autistic, feel relieved because now we know the plan and we can get help. It's the
and there's a road to go down.
It's what we don't know what's going on and who to call and what to do. So, people, if there's anger around all this COVID stuff, I feel like, you have every right to feel that way. I'm talking to a lot of people about, and Judy and I talked about this too, how so important to have some real relationships right now. The kind of having places to vent and talk to people, because it's such a loss of control and there's so much uncertainty. And, what can we do? Right. You outside of moving, like, not everybody has that option. Not everybody can go move to a place that, or not everybody can. So I think, just so important, I think, to just allow yourself to be angry when you need to be angry, finding some healthy outlets. Judy and I have been banging around a paddle tennis ball, and that really has been helping me get my aggressions out, and watching Judy hit that ball at the net is pretty impressive. And we were talking about real relationships. And I think, social media, it can be a good thing and texting can be a good thing, but I think it's so important to have people that you can pick up the phone and call, and really hear their voice and hear their emotional response to your upset. When somebody goes, like right along with you, that does a lot for our heart to hear another person go, no way. A text is good, no way, but to really hear their voice say that is so important. And to feel like there's people you can, say anything to. I always call it, you need three people, by the time you say it 3 times, what you're really pissed about, or you just can't live with it, and you just can't have to deal with this another day. Usually by the third person you've said it to, it kind of like takes it down several notches.
So it's just that you've like vented it 3 times.
That's like my own little Sarah Laverty thing. There's no science behind that. I just, I feel like there's something about like saying it and hearing more than one person go, oh my God, that's how, I don't know how you're going to get through that, or that's a tough one, or, it's hard for me too. But here's what I'm doing, and how important it is to provide that for other people too. And I think, with everybody being locked down for, and this message of like, don't get together, I think has been really, really hard for people emotionally, because I do believe that the human spirit really gets like the power of the group. We're social people.
We're so social. Absolutely.
And we need the validation. Like, the human spirit needs to hear that we're not alone. You're not the only person pissed, that I went through that too. This is what I did, and how I put responsibility on people. Okay. Cause I hear, well, how do I make friends? I don't know how to, hey, it's everybody. Being a friend is hard work. It is reaching out, starting conversations with people, finding mutual areas of interest, complimenting people, being interested in how
sincerely,
being interested in how their time is going. Friendship takes time. It takes, initiative. It takes setting aside, time, being there for somebody else. And it's not easy, but it's really, really important. It's important to have people. And I think that's really something that sometimes we've gotten away from that. And I'm not sure, sometimes social media, people do like an angry blast and, with no understanding of really how that affected other people.
And there's no context.
Right. And you don't really you might get like a different response back, but it's not really, maybe specific to you and your needs. So I kind of feel like social media has given people a false sense of relationships in a weird way, because it's kind of given them an easy out to not really have to cultivate and put themselves out there.
That's interesting.
In a different way. So I really challenge people, and there's no easy way to do it. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes you strike out. You thought somebody was kind of normal and really they're not.
Or you thought they were a good match to be a good friend with you, and maybe they didn't see it that way.
Yeah, right. Like, so I think, challenge yourself, go join something, go do something different, go put yourself out there. Like me talking on this podcast right now.
I'm so proud of you. I know. So, there's a great reason right there, like why we need girlfriends, women need girlfriends, and guys need guy friends. They need their outings. We need our outings, I will say that I tend to not do a lot of that. Like I'll do little outings, but I don't really do too much of it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe just picking up the phone more often, or like I love to go for a walk. So I will call people. I'll be like, come on, want to go for a walk or grab a cup of coffee? That's like my, come on, girls.
I call it, can we say certain words on here?
We can say any word.
Oh, okay. I call it, I'm glad you mentioned walking. I call it walking and bitching. Because it's great. Walking is free. It gets you outside, so you can get your vitamin D. You're exercising, and it's time with a friend. Like you're killing so many birds with one stone. Because when you run, if you try to run with somebody else, it's hard to talk, right? Especially if you run with Judy. She's a serious worker outer. So
no, I don't run anymore.
That's why I love walking. It's a great way to hang with people. You can kind of talk about a bunch of stuff. And I think it's a great way to work through anger. I think if you took any person and you interview, that's an interesting thing for you to do, Judy. If we're working on anger, you could ask a person to rate their anger before they do their workout. If are you having any anger today? What would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10? And then at the end, rate, are you having any anger now? How would you rate it on a scale from 1 to 10? I've never finished a workout and been like, darn, I shouldn't have worked out, and I feel worse about my day now. Right?
Never.
Never. Every time I've exercised or gone for a walk, I've said, I'm so glad I did that. I feel better, and I feel better about my day right now. So it's so important to talk. Judy and I were talking a little bit about meditation, right? If folks out there can meditate, like give yourself an A+ and a gold star, because it is a great thing to do. It's a great modality. It is wonderful for meditation is great for folks that I consider kind of hot folks, like folks that have that fiery temper and they kind of go right to like 0 to 10. Mm-hmm. Those folks do benefit from just a couple minutes, just an easy meditation. But I have to say, I find many people just can't commit to it. They can't commit to, really setting aside even just 5 or 10 minutes. So it's different for every person, like what's gonna allow you to kind of work through things and see things differently. So I think there's a lot of like pressure on meditating right now. It's really one of the most kind of considered to be one of the best ways of kind of calming that quick temper and allowing yourself. They feel like the meditation allows you to be in the place of thinking about what you're thinking about better. It allows that wise mind. So the meditation and the wise mind and the thinking about what you're thinking about words I've been talking about falls under a little bit more of dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT.
Okay.
And then the stuff I was talking about with the thought states, controlling the feeling states, and going back to core beliefs, that's a little bit more of the CBT stuff. So if
cognitive behavioral,
if folks out there are kind of hearing this and thinking, God, I'd love to start thinking about things that way, or there are some therapists out there that really specialize in one of those modalities or the other. And somebody like me, I kind of use them as concepts and will bring them in, but I kind of float back and forth between the two of them, and they're kind of similar. Just the main concept of, we don't want our emotions just to be taking control of us, like what the book you're reading. We don't want to just be this victim to depression or anger. And, we want to feel like in a state with ourselves where we can talk to ourselves about how we're feeling, assess how we're feeling, and do something about it. We need, like I said, human beings need control. We don't want to feel like I'm just sad and I'm going to feel this way all the time and there's nothing I can do. That's, loss of control and uncertainty are two really hard places for the human spirit to be in. So, yeah,
it's got me thinking just so many things. One point is kind of like you were saying, there are some people who feel like meditation isn't like their thing. And I feel like that's okay as long as you have some kind of outlet, like to sit there and close your eyes and actually do it. I was reading a different book all about, you don't have to not think to meditate, but you have to sit there for 15 minutes. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is a waste of time. This is not decompressing my mind. I'm going through my grocery list. I'm going through my to-do list. I'm like, I forgot to take the clothes out of the washing machine. So after 3 days, I'm like, I felt more anxious instead of less. So
you're like, I'm failing, because you feel like you're failing at meditating, right? I'm failing at meditating. I'm not doing a good job meditating. So you have another negative self-talk.
Yeah. So I'm like, don't go there. We just got to try something else. And that's okay. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I know people that swear, I know people that it's really a part of their life and it's been great for them. So my whole thing with that is, if it works for you, great. But I don't want people having meditation guilt and feeling like failures meditating.
Oh, thank God. I don't have to feel guilty.
If it's not for you, and really there's so much to controlling the breathing. I used to laugh so hard. I'd go to these seminars, you'd sit for 5 hours of, anger and how all, and we're going to talk in the afternoon about what to do about the anger. So you're all waiting to the afternoon. Okay. Deep breathing. I'm like, deep breathing. I came here to listen to you lecture, but I'm telling you, there's so much science behind. So really the meditation is the breathing, is the controlling the breath. And the concept is you're allowing the emotions just to kind of pass through you. You're not really trying to control them. You're just kind of being with them and you're letting them pass through you. So
you're just kind of observing.
Yeah. Just kind of being with it. And so, I think too, some of that, the yoga stuff, going with, when you exhaust the human body, you can become more close. You're decluttering the mind and you're, letting in, finding your self-love. I didn't know that the whole thing of yoga was to find self-love. Did you know that? Yoga's real yoga's like a workout, but really the purpose of yoga is exhausting the body so that you can kind of let go of your earthly, let go of your tensions so that you can experience self-love. Kind of cool. So,
I love that application. If you think about it,
right. It's so much, there's so much. So some people accomplish that through working out, right? I'm so exhausted after I run 3 miles that I'm really not anxious anymore. I'm kind of just with it, it's just kind of, it's allowing it to be with your body and kind of pass through. but it's all tough stuff. I mean, this is all like easier said than done. You know, everyone's human. Nobody has it down of not losing their temper or not, you know, getting mad in a relationship or not, you know, it's life's work. It's life's work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're supposed to have emotions, right? And I read somewhere that it's not just humans. Like, where did I read that today? All mammals can have an anger emotion. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And they can have, I can kind of tell when my dogs are pouting. I mean, you can definitely tell when they're angry, you know? Yeah, I can. So it's kind of interesting to me that like, okay, it's normal. It's okay, you know, and we just move on. But I do love the fact that having someone that you can rely on, you know, be a friend to someone and they'll be a friend to you, you know, so yay for picking up the phone and going for walks or whatever it is that you do, you know, with your, you know, and if someone doesn't call you back, try someone else. Right.
Right. Exactly. And it's not, and I always think sometimes it's not rejection, it's protection. If it doesn't work out.
Slow down. Yeah. Say that again.
Well, I'm not sure if folks are religious. A little religious girl said this to me, and the way she said it was, it's not rejection, it's God's protection. So like maybe, but we could take the God part out for listeners that aren't, you know, it's not rejection, it's protection. Sometimes if it doesn't jive with somebody, it's protecting you from that person isn't going to work with you. You know, I think we get so hung up on, oh, they don't like me. They're not calling me back. They didn't text me back in 30 seconds. You know, people have their lives and you have yours. And if it's meant to be, and if they, you know, it's okay. It's okay if somebody isn't as interested in you as you thought, you know, as you are in them. It doesn't, maybe there's something maybe you're being protected from something that in that relationship that's actually going to make you feel worse. You know, maybe they're not really quite right for you.
Good point. Yeah. Maybe they got their own problems and they're not ready to share.
Right. And a lot of folks, I think, you know, do struggle with that. We were talking too, how I am always drawn to people. You know, I want to know what's really going on. I don't want to just hear, you know, Johnny's getting all A's and, you know, Tina's the head of the cheerleading team and everything's perfect and wonderful. And, you know, like you'll want to hear like, you know, we all suck. I mean, I do well with people that are like, oh my God, this is what happened in my house today. Can you top that? Doesn't it just feel better? Right. You know, the older I get, like nobody wants a bragger. Nobody likes a bragger. And I'm always watching for, you know, and I always go to too, like when you're thinking about friendships and when you're in friendships, if it doesn't feel good, you don't want to be around it. Like if you're not making me feel good, I'm just probably not going to call you back because, you know, life is short, right? I'm not going to, you know, and if somebody else isn't making you feel good, like, you know, Judy, right. You get older. Like I'm not giving time to folks that if it really chronically just doesn't make me feel good, you know?
Yeah. Well, we can definitely be more selective, you know, the more the years go by, I use this analogy a lot. Like the closer we are to the end of the toilet paper roll, like I don't have time for extraneous stuff. It's got to really be meaningful. You know?
Right. Exactly. And so, right. The key is kind of like balancing, right? Like you need some people, and finding them. And, it's been great chatting.
It has been great. I feel like we've uncovered so much. One quick thing, because this really, this kind of like put it together for me, you know, getting angry over what we can't control is basically anxiety, right? Getting angry
can lead to,
can lead to anxiety, but getting angry and taking action can lead to a resolution. Yeah.
Yep.
So
action step. Yep. Do something about it.
Yeah. Don't just
and you. Yeah. And it helps for people to understand. I mean, it sounds so simple, but you can control how you feel, right? Like if you,
you can change your story.
Yeah. And that's really powerful. And there's some people that don't think that, right? They go back to these core beliefs of, I'm going to always feel bad in relationships because people don't like me. I mean, there's people, you know, expecting. And so when you change that, you can, really start to think about things differently.
Yeah, I like that. It puts the control, it gives us some control back, which I think is the nice thing. Realizing that we can control things about ourselves. We can control beliefs about ourselves. And, maybe they are true, maybe they are, but the way we choose to look at them can make a difference really in how our whole day goes.
Making a decision about it, right?
Yeah.
It's the decision that we're making about things that drives our thought process. Like we're pretty strong cheerleaders. If we're going to tell ourselves all day, this is going to be terrible and awful, no one's going to like me, it's all going to end badly, you're probably not going to feel great.
If it's going to come to fruition.
If you can at least get to, I tell people, you don't have to sit there and tell yourself it's all going to go great and wonderful, but you can at least say, this might not work out the way I want it to, but I'm going to get something out of it. This might not work out the way it might not go great with this person, but it beats sitting home and doing nothing. If you can get to optimistic statements, if you could get to hopeful, and then you can really kind of you can really change your feeling state. But it takes, this is hard work. This is tough stuff.
This is hard work.
Yeah. It is hard work. But I'm always like, if the goal is to feel good, there's a pretty big payoff, right? Because if we're doing a little mental work, but we're truly feeling better, that goes a long way. And we were talking too, just from your health perspective, I mean, there is real science around, being on that angry train that's going nowhere, being angry about things that we can't control. Your cortisol levels you're messing with your heart rate, your breathing rate, your digestive tract gets thrown off. We don't like, our whole body does not like that tensed up. You're taking years off your life stressing with just stress that goes nowhere. So true. And so you have to, we all owe it to ourselves. You have to keep your body out of that stress state, and sometimes it might be making a decision of, that person's emotions don't control me. I'm not going to be reactive to, we talked a lot about, divorce and how that leads to some just real chronic, anger and resentment. And it can feel like it's a fixed position. It can really feel like this person that I loved is an enemy. And, every day is kind of a fight against the enemy. And so I really try to challenge people to make some different decisions on that and to really try to I always say in session, I'll be like, we got to kind of come to something different on this. You got to come to a different place with this and make a different decision about it so that your thoughts can drive your feeling states. Yeah. I've had a couple of people lately that told me they were angry in session, and I started clapping for them, because for all these folks, these were folks that were, so nervous to get out the door, but now we're getting comfortable and now we're angry at the person, and I'm like, yes, you're doing good. Yay. Or somebody that, has some really negative family patterns, and they're finally, instead of kind of feeling victim to it, they're getting angry about it, and they can kind of set some boundaries, right? Maybe that we can't maybe we can't take certain people out of our lives, but if we get angry enough, we could change how often we see them, or decide we're not going to take their call. We're going to let it go to voicemail. So, there's sometimes, like I said, bring your angry selves to therapy, folks. Do not run and hide from your anger. I know we talked, Judy, too, about, I think our society has kind of done some angry shaming of like, any aggression or anger is, really kind of looked down upon or seen as, and I don't understand that. And then I think we were laughing too about all these series on TV that everyone's watching where there's these torture scenes and really, in the video games, all the kids play. So it's like, it's there. It really is still part of.
Yeah. That could be a whole other episode. But I love the thing about shaming. We can't shame anger. I don't think we should shame any emotion, because they happen, that's inside of us. It's for us to deal with. And basically, if someone else is going to shame me for anger, I'm going to be like, isn't that your problem and not mine?
Right. Right. And again, like if your anger looks like you're, ruining the party and, creating conflict and drama, right?
Oh.
Then you deserve to be shamed. But, you know, like just, you know, the
Like
past,
maybe you should go home. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it's like the anger discussion. It's, I know we talked too. It's like, you have to be very careful, because certainly don't want to, like, you know, I'll say again, I don't want to give anyone the idea that you can just go around and tell everyone off that, you know, no. Listen to it and deal with, like, be present with it is more what we're saying.
Okay.
You know, don't feel guilty about, I have people come in, they're guilty that they feel angry. I'm like, okay, you know, we got to start back with, please get angry, listen to what it's saying. And what do you need? What is it that you want to have happen? You know, what do you need control over? What do you need clarity about? Because
what's
those
it
are
trying to teach you? Yeah. Sarah, this has been unbelievable. I hope that people are getting some things out of this. Where can people contact you?
Well, I am like old school. Call me up if you want to come in.
Okay. Can I put your phone number in the show notes?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All
yep.
right.
The easiest way is just give me a call if you want to come in. I'm credited with most of the insurances. Happy to see folks that are willing to work hard.
All right. And you will, it doesn't have to be local because you do Zoom.
Yes, if folks are comfortable on Zoom. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. This has been great. It's always good to talk about what you do. You know what I mean? It's always good.
It is good to talk about it. And I'm so glad that you responded so willingly. Thank you so much. Well, who knew that talking about anger could be that much fun? Actually, I kind of had an idea because Sarah and I always have a blast whenever we get together. So thank you once again, Sarah. I hope this was helpful. And if it was, you know what to do. Bam! Grab a screenshot and share it on your social media. But really, thank you as always for listening. And your listening means so much to me. So I truly appreciate it. Please come back next week and we will have a fresh episode here on the Ear Hug Community Podcast. Bye.